And then you are a career coach for Black, Indigenous, and people of color and people in equity deserving groups. Firstly, why would someone need a career coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one way I try to think about it is similar to other types of coaches. So, you mentioned you play soccer, so maybe you like to watch sports. So, especially sports coaches, that's something to kind of like frame this conversation in. A career coach is the person in your corner that can push you, can support you, and hold you accountable to your goals, whatever it may be that you need. And a career coach can be many different things, depending on where you are in your career or what you're specifically looking for at a given time. So can be a tailored approach to a job search, a major career transition, or exploring possible paths. So I think anybody who wants to take their careers to the next level should consider working with a career coach. I have done so at various points in my career, and it's been super, super helpful. You don't need to work with them for forever and ever. It can be in kind of spurts, because obviously there is a financial and a time cost. But again, going back to the sports analogy, is if you think of yourself as like a rising tennis star or whatever sport you like to watch, and you want to go pro, would you consider doing that without a coach? Probably not, right? And so while friends and family are important sources of support and guidance, sometimes the last person you want career advice from is from your parents or your romantic partner or someone who, have a stake in the game, and you want someone who have the skills, they're professional, who have your best interests at heart, but is not necessarily personally impacted by whether you take a job or not. You want that kind of objective but caring perspective.
And what was your first foray into not being a career coach, but getting career coach? Because many times when I do speak to career coaches, it is a
Yeah.
process of, okay, first I've been coached and I've seen the value in that, and now I want to do it. So what was your experience in getting coached? Like, why did you want to do it, and what was that benefit that you got?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a program that my a friend and colleague of mine told me about. The name is escaping me right now because they changed their name, so it makes it kind of hard when organizations do that, but I can find it later. So basically, she told me about this program where if you're kind of like a rising kind of young female professional at like an early to mid career stage, working in like a social impact field, then you can apply for this program. It's quite an intensive application process. I had to make a video, which I'm never that comfortable making a video, but I was like, I'm going to do it and answer a bunch of questions. And then you get a subsidized rate. So you still do pay, but it's way cheaper and way more financially accessible than if you were to just work with the coach at their regular rate. And you get to work with them for a period of time. I think it was about maybe 6 months, and you kind of, or there's a certain period of time. And so that was amazing. It was at a point where I was making a job transition and just making a lot of kind of different decisions. And it just really, the structure of it helped. And obviously the work that we did together was super amazing. So that was kind of my introduction to it, and just really got me thinking. I had actually already started something like this in terms of being a career coach, but between my main job and my career coaching, it just really accelerated it. So I was like, well, this is really great.
And why was becoming a career coach for others something that was important to you?
Yeah. So this goes even further back. I guess in my undergrad, I was a peer tutor. I think that was my title at the time, but it was a volunteer position. And that was kind of my first introduction. I just wanted to I love volunteering. I think if I ever, can kind of be independently wealthy or retire, like I just volunteer all the time. I'd be like one of those ladies, like constantly volunteering. So as part of my undergrad, I was doing various volunteer things. And one of the things I did was to be, like a peer mentor, peer tutor to other students. I really liked that. But the biggest piece for me was during my master's. I worked pretty much all through my master's except for the first semester, and just was living in Vancouver, very expensive city, just needed money. And one of the jobs was being a peer tutor for students with additional learning needs, through the Center for Accessibility at the university that I was at, which is University of British Columbia. And so it was a great job, and I did get paid for it and was working with different students and just really loved that experience. I had to leave the job because I was no longer a student, and you have to be a student to get that job. And then I also volunteered with my alumni association. So especially during the pandemic, they were having virtual sessions with students and kind of new grads about resumes and cover letters. And so I was doing that with other volunteers. Really like that. And then again, I was wanting to kind of do more volunteering. And so I put out a call on LinkedIn to be like, who wants to, me to mentor them? And so I had a few people reach out and really enjoyed that experience. So that was kind of over the course of maybe like just under maybe about a decade, like all of that. And then about 3 years ago, I thought, okay, there's really a need for this. I've been doing this in relatively a volunteer capacity, but wanting to kind of make it into something that I had kind of more control over and something that I could learn and experiment with. So that was kind of how I created this coaching service.
And you also have like a focus on those specific groups I mentioned, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, and people in equity deserving groups. Why is it important for you to focus your work on those groups specifically?
Yeah, so obviously anyone who works can benefit from a career coach, and there are tons out there. Lots of really wonderful coaches. But for me, I really wanted to focus on equity deserving professionals, which is a very broad definition, and I know that there's lots of different intersecting identities, and there's a lot of nuance there. Because I've seen through, again, my own personal experience in terms of the identities I occupy, and also in a hiring role, and when I worked on different teams and the very many jobs I've had over the last 12 years, that there are at different points various inequities that exist, or just advantages and disadvantages that different candidates have. And I really do see that emerging when I've been in a hiring role, despite everyone's best efforts. It's just there are some inherent inequities, systemic ones. And so I think oftentimes for BIPOC or equity deserving folks, they may not have friends or family that can teach them about the unspoken rules of the workplace, or they don't want to burden their family with their work kind of troubles, if you will, or they might be supporting family members financially or otherwise, emotional support. And so maybe the urgency of their job search affects more than just them. There might be many other people who are impacted. And so, it's super important for me to take an equity approach in my work, both my main job and also with this. And I think for now, this is the best way for me to impact change and kind of challenge those inequities in the workplace from kind of a different, more one-on-one approach. And it's something that I also really enjoy. I learn a lot from my clients. I learn about, so I hear sometimes really hard stories that I have been privileged to not experience myself, but it keeps me humble. I think it feeds back into my main job, where it makes me a better leader, a better coworker, a better friend, just a better person, hopefully. Yeah.